Welcome, everybody. It is Thursday morning, coffee talk time, and we're excited to spend this time with you and our coffee and together.
Especially excited for coffee.
One of the things that we like to do is look back at what happened in the previous few days. We look back to Sunday and the passage that we're looking at. This series is focused on two verses, Galatians 5:22 to 23. And one word in each one, and so it's a little different than what we are used to with a longer passage. But these words are the fruit of the Spirit, and what we're calling the taste of the kingdom. And this week started with the first taste, the taste of love, and love pretty much wraps up all of them. I didn't mention that on Sunday, but it wraps up like. All of these are interconnected, but love is the foundation for all of these expressions of the fruit of the Spirit. Anyways, threw out a lot of information on Sunday about love and how to do it, but the three kind of things, can you guys remember what were the three suggestions or the three biblical principles?
I wrote them down. I'm taking notes.
Can I remember back to 45 seconds ago when you reminded me of humility?
Humility, respect, or value. I was trying to figure out, is he saying respect or is he saying value? Because you were kind of saying both, and it's the same thing, I think. Listening.
Yeah, awesome. So we've already demonstrated listening well. We listen to each other. But a question that probably just like a warm-up question would be, when have you felt listened to that way, in a humble, respectful way? When have you felt that, or what did it feel like to be listened to that way, to be valued, to be respected in a humble way?
So that great question, because I think my brain, when my pessimism is showing, goes right to the all the negative times where it didn't happen. But so I will say this in a positive side. When my kids have done something, I'm like, why'd you do that? Like, well, you told me to yesterday. It's like, oh yeah, I did. And I've forgotten I've asked them to do something, but they've remembered. I'm like, you were listening.
Yeah.
And it just it's like, wow, that feels like, for me, listening and respect are like almost two sides of the same coin, right? If I'm listened to, then I'm like, I feel more respected.
Yeah.
And then what often happens is like, this morning, right, we're getting ready for school, and I'm like, hey, could we do this and could we do that? And it's like, just crickets in the room. Actually not, because they were doing things, and Ezra was like, I'm like, Ezra, did you do, and Micaiah, did you, and right, and you have these things like, not like, could you put your lunch kit in your backpack so you don't forget it on the counter? And it's just like, and then it's like, hello, am I, didn't realize I was living on my own, right? And so we have those moments too, where it's like, this is useful information. Why is no one responding?
Yeah.
And so, and it's like, why am I even here? I might as well just go. I'll just go to work. You guys figure it out. You be feral. You'll be fine. But we know where that would lead.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, really. Like, when you're listened to that way, you do feel respected, and I would say therefore loved too. Like, you feel like I matter, right? And if this person is showing me love by listening and respecting what I have to say.
Yeah, and by loved, if you mean especially like contributing something, because I don't think anybody wants to be redundant. And if I'm just talking to the wind, and it's like, well, I could find a better use for my time and talents, right? Really, I don't have to be here. Obviously, I do with my family because I love them, and that's I'm like, you might need me more than you realize right now, so we're gonna ride this one out and get to the other side. But there's other settings and situations where it's like, maybe I could be doing something better with my life, and if nobody has any need to listen to what I have to say. So that can quickly turn dark, but whatever. That's not what I mean by it. But just, I think we've had those conversations where we're just like, okay, let's wrap this up. I'm gonna move on and do something else.
Yeah. So where you feel not listened to and disrespected, and therefore
like
Pretty much like.
well, like
oh,
Kevin
he
said a
doesn't
minute
matter.
ago, right? How
Yeah.
valued and
Yeah.
respected
Mhm.
are like hand in hand.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I could
Yeah.
find a place to be valued.
Do you know where I got that? Jeff Gates.
Yeah, right? Maybe you heard a sermon about it?
How about you? When do you feel loved?
Do you know,
or respected or listened to or whatever?
I of course echo the kids thing because I'm like, I just told you.
Yeah.
But there's that. But it actually goes a whole lot deeper. I think the times that it has connected with me the most and the deepest has been conversations with my wife that like, you know, we go on a date and there's like, you know, stuff that we talk about, or even there's been times where we've planned to have a deep and difficult conversation about like, you know, whatever, fill in the blank, you know, finances or, you know, shouldn't we have kids and should we have more kids and all these things of like, where we were able to actually say to each other, you know, here's what I think, and actually I felt like you heard me when I said that, and there's a huge amount of connection and value and respect that happens not only within that relationship but even within those conversations, right? Like, and there's a few times that are like markers in our relationship where we've been able to really do that in an amazing way. And of course, you know, over the years, there's times where we haven't listened to each other, or, you know, maybe I just stopped listening other times too, right? Like, and I'm just waiting for my turn to talk or something like that. But, you know, the opportunity in those times to really have that moment to say, I actually felt like you heard what I said, and they were able to say it back, and like all that stuff as well too. You know, as I've taken couples through premarital, and the first thing you talk about is being able to communicate well and respect in that, and then being able to repeat back what that person said, and then to affirm like, thank you for actually hearing me, right? And those kinds of basic things that actually just make life grow better and give you that sense of value and community and yeah.
So what makes it so hard to humbly and respectfully listen to somebody? Why do we feel more often, I would say, probably, in our culture and in our lives that we're not listened to? What makes it so hard to actually have that, whether you give it or you're receiving it, that kind of humble, respectful listening? What makes it so hard?
Do you want the real answer or the funny answer that keeps coming into my head? Because on some level, it's like, oh, this conversation is so boring, right? And we don't, culturally, right, we don't engage well with what doesn't stimulate us. And some of those hard conversations are frankly boring or uncomfortable, and our brains escape because we haven't...
Or like you said, redundant.
Right. Oh man, the amount of times I'm like, I feel like I've been here before. If only you had listened the first time, right? And so then our brain, and we just like mentally check out, or the hamster on a wheel goes, hey, squirrel, or whatever. And so some of that is just mental discipline and training and commitment to the relationship and conversation. And sometimes maybe it's brain chemistry that we rely on as an excuse instead of that. But sometimes it's that lack of humility that we also talked about, right? That thinks, actually, I'm more important in this moment. I'm more important in this conversation. So I don't care what you have to say because I'm right. I came to this conversation knowing I'm right. And unless you leave here knowing I'm right, then we're pointless. But that's actually not a conversation.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we just don't really understand what a conversation is.
I think you hit, again, I just used that metaphor, but you hit the nail on the head with the being right. That's huge. I find myself, when I'm disagreeing, I'm like, I know what you're going to say. I've heard that argument before. Well, have I actually listened to what they're saying? And then repeated it back to them and like entered there. So we talk about in premarital counseling, but also I just think it's so valuable. My circle and your circle, right? Yeah. Hopefully that we're trying to get them to be concentric, like coincide. Yeah. But they're often, we feel like they're so far apart. But if I were to actually listen to what you're saying instead of assuming I know what you're saying, and then repeat back to you, usually they're now would you listen to me? Yeah. Take turns. Instead of thinking, I've really thought about this a lot too, is am I trying to be right now, or am I trying to be loving?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good question to ask, right? Sometimes those are the same, but sometimes
I'm
they're
not listening, Jeff. I want to get my point in.
Thank you for good demonstration of,
Well, go ahead, and then I have another later.
The other side of that coin
Yeah.
is also, is the issue on the table the most important thing? Because that's often what we do. Like, no, finances is the most important thing that we're talking about right now, and you have your perspective towards it, and it's in the middle of the table, and I have my perspective, and we are going to solve this by me pushing my way and you pushing your way, and maybe we'll find a common ground.
Yeah.
That's not the point, because that makes that issue on the table more important than anything else. Us as a team, or this relationship, or whatever you want to call it, or even in a larger circle, us being together on the same page is more important than that issue on the table. And us as a team can solve that better with 2 or 5 or 10 minds working on this one thing, rather than me working my way and you working your way, and we just find a compromise in the end.
Yeah.
That's really important. And what I hear in the midst of that is the value of connection, and especially with our family. So what I was going to bring up is that sometimes we miss each other in conversation, because what's being said is not necessarily what's being said, and we need to ask, well, where's this coming from? What's behind this?
Yeah.
So in a situation that happens repeatedly, unfortunately, in my house, is my oldest and I are almost too much alike, and we need, and this is where Sheena is brilliant and amazing, because she'll be observing us talking and going, you guys are missing each other.
Yeah.
And so she will help interpret, and not even translate, but go, now I think what Micaiah is missing is this. Explain that. Explain what's behind it. And then she'll sometimes go, and what are you hearing when? And it's that kind of oh, you are saying that thing, and I've heard it, but it isn't sinking in because I hear it, but I don't get it. And instead of asking the question, where's this coming from, or what do you mean by that, or could you say that in a different way, or to ask myself, I'm sharing what is important, but they're missing it. Because and instead of me I have to just say it again, right? It's kind of I don't know if you travel internationally and you're trying to talk with people who don't speak English.
So you say it
so you say it slower and louder, right? And the person you're talking with is still just as glazed over because it's not a language they understand.
Yeah.
And so we need to sometimes communicate, well, this is actually why it's important. This is, or where it's coming from, or we just need to not without saying more words. We need to say actually what needs to be said. And so, and what I mean by connection is, if I, in those moments where we're missing each other, can go, okay, the most important thing right now is not being right, but is actually connecting with this person so that they can grow, so I can grow from what they are trying to say with me, and we're working on that connection, then actually we get somewhere. Even if we do disagree, but we're oh, okay, we're still family, or in the case of in the church, we're still brothers and sisters in Christ. We're going to work on that connection, even if we do disagree, or sometimes need to sit with this for a long time and chew on it, and then it might even take months or years, and go, oh, wait a minute, that's what they were talking about.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about what I was going to say next. Whoops, but you helped me remember that. One thing that I try to do is repeat back, here's what I hear you saying, because then it tells them, oh, I need to say that differently, right? So a lot of times I'm hearing you saying, did I get it right? That's a good part of really listening, is showing the other person that you've heard them, right? So I've heard you say this and this and this, but I want to make sure I really understand you. Is that what you meant to say? Yeah. And then they'll say, oh, no, actually this and this and this, right? Another thing that I was thinking about is when we stand before Jesus, I don't think he'll say, were you always right? I think he'll say, were you loving? And that's powerful, because if I think that now, when I'm in any relationship, any conversation, am I being loving, or am I trying to be right? That's a real challenge, I think Jesus cares more, are we loving?
And I'm trying very hard not to interpret that or translate that into, I'm always right, but am I always loving? Because that's actually not the point.
We feel like we're always right.
Right, no. But you're absolutely, that's a great thing to bring us back to, Jeff, because the command in Scripture is again and again love, right? Right? The world will know we are Jesus' people by how we love one another.
Yeah.
Oh, if only there was a verse, I don't know, on the
There we
wall
go.
about that, right? That is what is commanded again and again. And I don't recall any verses that say, therefore go forth and be always right.
Yeah.
Can I just point out the obvious for a second?
No, we're not going to listen to you.
This thing behind us.
Sorry.
If you're new to our church in the last 2 years, this might actually be news to you. When Pastor Linden, who was the previous lead pastor up until 2020, upon their exit from our church, a good exit, to word this properly. So we were having a farewell night for them, and they wanted to just communicate one thing. And they said, I don't care what you guys hear from the last 20 years of our ministry unless you hear this one thing. And so that you remember it, here it is in a banner form. You can do whatever you want with that, but please just hear us say, this is what matters. And so this is like kind of a marker in yes, our church history and all of that, but just so in case anybody who is new to the church just kind of walks in and says, oh, that's a nice banner, whatever. No, actually there's a big reason behind that, because in Pastor Linden's move on to, the next job that he took on, he said, I need you to hear this so deeply, because it's so easy for us to forget. And it's so easy for us to just say, I'm going to choose my own way, and we're not in this together with other people. It's about, whatever. So this is really important, not only for us to see and hear, but to kind of be brought back to, even as a church, so.
Because it's not just us saying it. This is the history of our church leadership. We want to be loving.
Like literally Jesus saying it.
Which is also why we actually I decided to hang it in the fellowship room. That's where we are right now, because a lot of times this is where life groups meet. And in the middle of a life group, sometimes this is a difficult thing. Or in the middle of a leadership meeting, or a committee meeting, or a whatever kind of gathering that happens here at the church, sometimes this is difficult. And that's very intentional on our part. So I hope that when you walk past this, you don't just see Pastor Linden, you actually see the words of Christ saying, this is a command I give you, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So.
Well, we could go on and on about love, and we have for a little bit here, and it's great, and I hope that you're having these discussions, and I hope you're practicing listening. I mean, it's not easy. We've given a few tools here. I took a course called about life coaching. It's life coaching is, I don't need to explain it to you, but the hardest part for me was listening. Like listening without leading, or listening without trying to answer, figure out the answers for the person, but just listening. That was a huge part of it. That once that clicked, all of a sudden, kind of everything else clicked, and it just really helped me. But anyways, just all that to say, listening's hard. Don't expect you to be perfect at it right away, but I would really request that you ask, or that you practice it. So. Looking forward now, we are putting together a church directory, and something that we noticed on Sunday was that we had Debbie Klukas is in the back or in the foyer helping people put your information in, and many people said, I'm already in the directory. Actually, no, you're not. You're in a previous directory. We're making this one new, and we want to get everybody to contribute their information so that we have it fresh, and we know who's saying, yes, I want to be in this directory and everything. So,
and it gives them the power, the opportunity to say, here's the information that I'm giving, and I'm updating it, and here's what I want in, right? You can do it there and online as well.
So here's an example of why we're doing this. I was going through my phone directory the other day, like my contacts on my phone, and I was trying to find a phone number. And as I'm scrolling through, I'm seeing names of people that I have not had any contact with in like 10 or so years. People who aren't even still alive. People who I don't know if this is their I think it was one of my sisters. I have like 3 different numbers for her or something, and I'm like, I don't know which one to text her on. And so we collect phone numbers and contact information like we collect other junk. and we just need to clean it out now and then and start fresh so that we know we've got everything correct and we've got the people who should be in it and all of that. So please don't assume that because you were in it before that you will be in it now. We just need to touch base and make sure you are in it.
Yeah, so there's ways to do that. You can, on our weekly email, there's a link in there. You can go in. And what it does is the first page just gets all your information. And we'd love to have your photo. On the second page, you can opt in whether that goes to our whole congregation or just to our leaders. So the leaders, we want to be able to be praying for you, know who you are, so that we can put a face to a name if we haven't seen you for a little while. That's why we want the picture. On the second page, if you don't want that to be in the directory for everybody to see, you can say, no, don't put it in the directory. But please put all your information in for us leaders to be able to pray for you and connect with you and all that. And then you decide how you want to use it. You can do that on the weekly email. You can do that Sunday morning. Somebody will be in the back to help you put it in. You can send in a photo, but please fill that out. So that's one thing. The other thing that I was going to say, I've forgotten now. On Saturday is Celebration of Life for Vicky Mack. So if you are able to if you remember Vicky or Bill, that's 1 o'clock. And then the other thing.
Sorry, just to make sure that was really clear, 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock here at the.
Yeah, it sounded like you just kind of rushed a little bit. I just want to make sure, because in my head, as you're leading up to that, I'm like, what's the time again? I don't remember the time. Oh, 1 o'clock. Okay, I want to make sure I take big note. 1 o'clock on Saturday.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then the last thing that I want to say, and you guys might have something else that you remember. We mentioned on Sunday, the last couple Sundays, that if you are interested in helping with people who have been affected by the fire, we have lots of requests. Lots of requests have come in this week for ways that we can help. So there's volunteer opportunities, there are financial opportunities, there are thing opportunities. I don't know how else to say that. Things that people need. Yeah. And so talk to me, talk to one of us, but we can help you know how you can help. We can give you some of those ideas, and you can say, oh yeah, that one I can really help with. So please talk to us if you would like to help with the fire, either by volunteering or giving or whatever. So anything else that...
The second thing I would say is, like we kind of mentioned it a minute ago, but life groups are kind of starting up, and I'm going to say starting up, but like they're not yet underway. And the reason for that is so that if you have not been in a life group, or if you are in a life group and would like to change a night or something like that, this gives you an opportunity to do that in the next couple weeks. We're kind of leaving that open so that each group can kind of work out when they start. There's some groups that already have a start date. Our seniors are starting
October 4th.
October 4th, so it's a Wednesday.
October 4th. Yep.
Wednesday morning, and you can see the bulletin for that. But a lot of groups have not yet started, and so if you're interested in joining a life group, now's a really good time. Please come talk to me, come talk to Jeff, come talk to Chris, send us an email, whatever works for you, but just please communicate really, really soon. And yeah, we've talked about it before, but like the importance of life groups is so big in change and care and growth of individuals, because it deals with stuff like this, and it deals with getting around God's word and hearing other people and growing together and finding community, and we've found such great friendships and all kinds of stuff. So.
Yeah, so lots to think about. We would just ask you to keep praying for our church family, for youth and children, for our life groups, just all these different things for each other, by name, people that you know. Chris, your uncle passed away a couple weeks ago, and so we want to be praying for you and your family as well as the Macs. And these are life things that we pray, hold each other up. So,
and the Morgans.
Yeah. And the Morgans, Tom's mom, and he's on his way today to go see her. So, to go to the celebration of life there in Australia. So, Yeah, hope you have a good week and love one another. Best way to leave this.